All right. So this podcast is not going to get videos, but I still want to promote it because we out here promoting my own shit, right? Anyways, the My Two Cents podcast. If you're unfamiliar with the My Two Cents podcast, it's my podcast that I do every week, just like this podcast. But instead of talking about the worldly topics that I talk about here, I simply just talk about music. So I listen to an album, I review it, and that is the podcast there. Or I just talk about specific songs or things that's going on within the music industry, music based discussions in general. If you want my thoughts on that, the only way you will find those episodes or just my thoughts on that is by subscribing to the My Two Cents podcast. And then link the description box below. You will find all the DSPs to where you can find the My Two Cents podcast. Appreciate your support. Support that podcast just like you're supporting this one. Now back to the show. What's up, y'all? It's your man Ernest, or You Love Ernest, back again with another episode of the Ernest Thoughts podcast. So, just a heads up for for everyone who's listening, the audio listeners and those watching on YouTube. I have the window up, so if you hear outside noises or anything, or if you're like, sounds like he's recording outside, I'm not recording outside this time. I'm inside, but I have the window open just to let some cool air inside. I can take off layers to cool myself down, but the sweater that I'm wearing has logos on it that I don't want to be seen because none of those logos sponsor your boy. So yeah, no free shout outs over here. Sorry. Unless they're gonna sponsor or whatever, then nah, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I do need to get some of my own clothing. I wore a t-shirt, a podcast t-shirt for that I created, one of my own merch. But I wore that shirt yesterday, and then the shirt that I have on under this sweater that has a different brand's logo on it. Um, it is the same black t-shirt from last week. Yeah, washed and everything, but it's the same black t-shirt. And I didn't want this to be the black t-shirt podcast to where, those who are watching on um YouTube, they're like, okay, that's his thing. He just wears a black t-shirt while recording. Nah, that ain't my thing. It just so happened that I was like, I need an undershirt, and that shirt was the first one that I literally picked out of the pile of stuff that was clean, obviously. So yeah, that's what happened. Anyways, I'll just let y'all know because Mr. Full Transparency over here, and we're on the YouTube once again. Shout out to everybody who supported the podcast via watching the videos, sharing them out, all that stuff. I do greatly appreciate that. I'm going to keep it going, as you can see, obviously. And still doing the audio, of course, because without y'all, there would not be a podcast to begin with in the first place. So appreciate y'all as well. I did forget to link my YouTube channel within the description box below for the audio listeners. So this part is mainly for the audio listeners, just like me talking about my swag was for the YouTube listeners. But I will remember to leave the YouTube channel within the description box below, so you can go there, subscribe if you want to support that way as well, or if you want to transition from audio to YouTube at times, or whatever the case is, whatever you choose to do, as long as you're supporting me, I'm fine with it, you know. So I will give you that option as well. So let's get right into the first topic here. And last week I covered a number of topics that were pretty much on um a personal development type tip, I guess, or the under the umbrella of one might call personal development, or just anything of that nature when it comes to PD. um I talked about two YouTubers last week that or at least I mentioned two YouTubers last week that I pay attention to, who are, they gave some advice that I felt was that I didn't agree with. And this week I'm starting off pretty much that trend as well, where I'm talking about another YouTube channel. Again, not going to name these people's names. Um, one for the I'm not naming their names simply because it's not because, oh, they don't sponsor, because I shout out people all the time, and I'm going to shout these people out whenever I do, talk about, them in the future, of course. But it's just, I don't want people to go over to their channels and start saying things like, you know just trying to start some beefs or trying to say some stuff or whatever the case is. I know not all of the people who tune into the podcast are like that, but you got crazies out there. You just never know. So it's like you got some folks who will try some stuff like that, because I've seen it. I've seen other people's fan bases do some shit like that, where they would literally go like somebody who mentions somebody by name in their videos, and it's just a critique in their video, podcast, whatever. It was just a critique, and then their fans went over to that person's channel and started disrespecting that person, or they tried to start some type of beef. And sadly, some of the times it happened, things actually ended up going that route. A feud was started simply because fans went over and did some high school type shit. And these are grown ass fans, by the way. These are like adults doing it more so than teens. Even though it's disgusting when teens do it, but it's understandable, or at least it's expected when teens or younger fans of that nature are doing it. But when it's adults doing it, it's like it's really extra disgusting. But anyways, there's another channel that I follow, and this channel again will remain nameless for the time being, but I will shout them out in the future, as I do with everybody that I watch and pay attention to and enjoy their content. Um, they make a couple videos on the idea of Stoicism, and I think their channel is um when I first got into them, it seemed as though their channel, yeah, it wasn't totally stoicism, but it seemed as though that they were kind of leaning in that direction, to where they wanted to have a message of stoicism all the time. For those who don't know what stoicism is, or to be stoic, it's to pretty or stoicism. It's pretty much this idea, and these are my layman's terms. Of course, you can go look it up yourself, but it's pretty much the idea of um not allowing yourself to be controlled by your emotions, or just not feeling in general, not having emotions. If you are a stoic individuals typically are seemingly, I guess from the outer appearance, are always cool on the outside, no matter the situation. um it could be a positive situation, and they don't necessarily show positive emotions, as one would if they were in a situation like that. And it could be a negative situation where people will portray negative emotions, right? Or a negative reaction to their situation. Whereas someone who is stoic, again, is just deadpan, in a way, or they're not showing again that emotion, or the expected emotion at all that one would expect one to feel during whatever the moment is, right? So, um, I think that teaching, just like a little bit last week when I critiqued the teachings of last week, I think there are pros and cons to it. Stoicism is no different. But I do have my issues with this whole idea of Stoicism. And my biggest issue being, I feel as though that it is asking humans to not be human. It is human for us to have emotions and to feel and to react to things positively, negatively, somewhere in between, if that's even a thing, or whatever the case is. We feel things. We're human beings, and stoicism, to me, depending on who's preaching it, of course, who's preaching the message of stoicism, but you do have people who are preaching this message of stoicism who are pretty much preaching humans to be robots, to be emotionless beings, you know? And to me, again, that's it's unfair. On top of everything else, it's unfair to ask anybody to do that, but also it's very impossible. It's impossible for you to, do that. And even the people that I feel as though who are, stoic, you have people who are stoic by nature. You have people who've practiced that, like they had to get to a level to where, they don't let their emotions control them. And again, that's one of the positives, I believe, to stoicism, or having some level of stoicism in your life, is you're not going to allow your emotions to make your decisions and to control you. you know that's definitely a positive, that we can learn from stoicism. So as I stated last week, I will state it here again. These things have pros and cons to them. I'm bringing up the cons because I want that to be made aware of. Because when you see situations like what I talked about last week with, the idea of being a loner or lone wolf, you typically just hear the positive side. When you hear sayings like it builds character, you typically only see positive results of people going through something tough and then coming out stronger because of that. You don't necessarily see the other side. And again, with stoicism, whenever you hear about it, if you ever hear about it, at least with me, whenever I hear about it, stoicism, it's always, oh, it's a way to protect yourself from getting hurt. And the thing is, the way to protect yourself from getting hurt as human beings, emotionally hurt, let's put it that way, right? Because stoicism is about, not being emotionally reactive, right? And physical reactive, because your emotions can drive you to react physically as well, but, it's based on emotional reactions, right? So, or trying to get you not to be emotionally reactive. So, the thing is, telling people not to react is not how you protect one's feelings. Actually allowing them to express those feelings is literally how you protect that individual. Because if you continue to hold it in, and this is where some people get the idea of stoicism messed up. Because it's like, okay, all I got to do is not feel. All I got to do is continue to tell myself that this issue is a non-issue and it doesn't bother me. It's going to obviously continue to boil inside and fester. And we know that, that's not how, that's not something that you want to happen. You know, you want to feel your feelings. You don't want to be controlled by them, but to deny them is not going to make things better. You want to feel them. you know so to anybody with this idea of stoicism, who believes that all I got to do is just, whenever I'm in a situation, whether it's a good situation or a bad situation, all I got to do is pretend like it doesn't affect me at all I got to do is not feel anything. You're not being human. You're not being human at all, you know and again, I don't want to put off as stoicism being this situation to where, you're not feeling your feelings. When, if you're listening to the right people who are preaching about stoicism, you're listening to what I would consider the right preachers of stoicism are individuals who are telling you not to be controlled by your emotions. Like, individuals who are not telling you not to feel, but individuals who are telling you that it's okay to have these emotions, but do not just be controlled by them. You as the human being should be able to control your emotions, not the other way around, not your emotions controlling you, you know? So that's pretty much my thing about the whole stoicism thing. Like I stated before, there are pros to it, and this is definitely an ideology that I not only practice for myself, but I want to continue to get better at it. but as someone who practices that, at just like as someone who practices the lone wolf lifestyle, and just like someone who practices the idea of using tough times to help build myself up, to help build character and strength mentally, and physical strength and all that stuff. If I'm having a tough time physically, um, I know exactly the dangers of of all these lessons, right? I also know that yes, these lessons actually do work and they're valuable, but it's not all good. It's not like a situation to where it's all good or all bad, you know. Um, yeah, that's just how I could like honestly describe it. So that's my thoughts on that. But we do have more topics to talk about, and yeah, it's gonna get hot. It might get emotional, but hey, we here now. So we're gonna get into a commercial break, and then excuse me, we'll get into the next topic. Stay tuned.